For joining in. It's a pleasure to have you all being part of the EG Bank's Hackathon, working on financial inclusion. There are huge opportunities and definitely we wish to see big successes coming out of you achieving your objectives, the bank's objectives, and supporting the entire ecosystem in Egypt and later on within the Middle East and perhaps also Africa. I'll start by briefly introducing myself, giving the mic to our panelists in here. My name is Noha. I am the founder and secretary general of the Egyptian FinTech Association, which is a non-for-profit that works mainly on enabling and growing the FinTech ecosystem in Egypt. And I'm also the elected vice president of the African Union of FinTech Associations, which is FinTech Africa, which is another non-for-profit that is based out of Lagos, Nigeria. We currently serve 38 African markets, focusing on the same objectives of growing financial inclusion, supporting micro and small businesses and FinTech startups digitize and grow the base of financially included individuals in Egypt and the continent. Let us start with Moemen. Moemen, perhaps you can introduce yourself and then give us some heads up about the bank, the incubator, the hackathon that you put together, its objectives, what do you aim out of it, and what do you wish to see happening? Sure. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Moemen Salem. I'm currently the head of youth banking at EG Bank. I've been working with the bank for almost 4 years now. So EG Bank is one of the private banks in Egypt. It was established in 1981 by a major group of shareholders from the Middle East as well as Egypt. It was mainly a boutique bank until 2015, only focusing on corporate banking and investments. But by 2015, a new CEO and a new management came on board. So we had a strategic change in the direction of the bank to be a fully fledged bank focusing on consumer banking, on corporate banking, on treasury. So full teams were hired. The bank has grown tremendously over the past 4 years. We're the largest growing bank in the Middle East in 2015 and 2016. Just to give you a quick glimpse of our numbers, we started 2015 with 19 branches. We reached up to 59 branches year to date. We're around 500 employees. We're now 1,800 employees. Number of ATMs were very minimal. Now we've expanded our ATMs network across most of the governorates in Cairo. We've opened branches in most of the governorates in Cairo as well. So the bank is doing really, really well when it comes to the bank. If you talk about in terms of assets and liabilities, ranking within the Egyptian market, we're ranked 28 and 29 respectively. That was back in 2015. Now we're ranked number 11 and 12 in terms of total assets and total deposits. So we're moving pretty well. Net profits has increased tremendously as well. And I joined the bank as the head of products in the consumer banking division for almost 2 years. Then we established a new division, a new department, which is called youth banking, with a strategic focus and direction of targeting youth age. When you talk youth, we talk between the ages of 16 up to 29 years old. We've further segmented this segment into 3 sub-segments. You're talking to 16 to 18 years of old, which are high school students. Then you have the other segment of 18 to 22 years old, which are university students, then moving forward to 22 plus, which are people in their early career. So the reason why EG Bank established the youth bank is that we really believe in youth, and youth are the main driver of any economy, not just Egypt, and they're the people that will change the future of the country. Usually youth banking in most of the banks are within the consumer bank. We just start by offering basic simple products such as a saving account, a debit card, or a checking account. But we took that to the next level. So we focused on youth when we did a lot of market researches and market surveys to understand what are the needs for youth, not just on the banking side, but on the beyond banking and other elements that are of interest for youth. So within youth banking, we have established 2 divisions or 2 arms, if you'd like to say it, which is a banking arm responsible for catering to all the regular products and services that those youth would be willing to want to have. Accounts, deposits, loans for the people who eligibly can take loans above 21 years of old. And the other part is the beyond banking. So the main focus for this hackathon is we'll talk about the beyond banking initiatives that we're working on. So within the beyond banking, we have several verticals that we're working on. Number one, which is one of the big focus for us, is our Mint incubator. Currently, we're the only bank in Egypt that owns and runs their own incubator. There are several very well-known and very well-established incubators in the market. So we've launched our own incubator back in 2017 with the main focus of encouraging youth and encouraging small entrepreneurs to enter into the market of the entrepreneurship ecosystem, to share their products, to share their ideas, and if they needed guidance and help through our incubator and through our ecosystem partners as well. So the incubator will currently run 2 cycles per year, in winter and in fall. So each cycle around 10 to 12 startups get accepted to our incubator cycle. Usually what we have, we open our application online for all the teams that would like to be participating in our incubator. The winning teams, they submit their applications. We have a quick scan of the application. Then we do interviews with each and every application and each and every founder of the company, just to ensure that whatever we are offering in our incubator will fulfill their needs. And then we do some sort of screening until we reduce the numbers to around 10 to 12 companies per cycle that we accept in our incubator. So what do we offer in our incubator? In our incubator, we offer all the trainings required in terms of workshops provided by subject matter experts. We have a mentorship match by which each and every startup is assigned a mentor during the incubation period, which usually runs between 3 to 4 months. We provide them all the support needed in terms of the banking activities. Supposedly, this startup that would like to open an account with the bank, would like to get some insights or some like financial advice on the banking aspects. We're also providing this to them. And when it comes to the equity, currently there are no strings attached between us and the startups that we accept in our incubator, which means that we don't take equity in the companies. Unlike other incubators where there is an equity component in place, our incubator, we only provide the guidance and technical expertise, which makes it, in my personal view, more appealing to the startups. So they would like to apply for us. They know that we're not going to take an equity in the firm. We're just there to help them and guide them and try to flourish their business and their ideas. So just to give you a quick numbers throughout, we've run 5 cycles up so far. We have our 6th cycle coming up. So during the past 5 cycles, we've incubated for around 52 startup companies. Those 52 startup companies have hired more than 350 employees within their teams. They've generated more than 17 million Egyptian pounds in revenues, and they had a customer outreach of more than 500,000 clients. We've done more than 180 mentorship sessions and more than 300 hours of workshops. So the incubator is moving really well. We're very happy with the way the incubator is being run. Previously, we were sector agnostic, which means that we're accepting companies from all other sectors. We don't have any specification in any sector. But being us as a bank and with the focus of the fintech and the rising technologies and how fintechs are disrupting every market, especially the financial industries. So next cycle, we launched a new fintech track that will be only focusing on fintech companies. So within the fintech track, we'll be looking not only on the regular track, we look at a company with an MVP stage or a prototype. But when we thought of launching the fintech track, we said, okay, let's get it one step behind. So before reaching the MVP stage of the minimum viable product, we'll be looking at companies in the ideation stage as well. So if we find a company that have an idea which can be validated, and we could look at the scalability of the idea and commercially, how can this idea be commercialized, we'll be accepting those startups in our incubator as well. So this brings us to the FinTech Hackathon as well. Because as you know, like FinTech Hackathon is a very good place where we can source ideas or scout for ideas. So when we thought of doing, it's our first time to run this FinTech Hackathon, so we thought of, okay, we'd like to partner with a company that have been there in the market for quite some time. We have the expertise, and we couldn't find a better better person or better company to partner with other than FinTech Galaxy, which have very, very good experience and expertise in running several hackathons across Egypt and across the Middle East as well. And we had several rounds of discussion with them. Then we came up with the problem statement that we're addressing in our hackathon this year, which is digital lending and credit scoring for non-clients. Again, this part comes along with the financial inclusion direction that the overall country is doing and with the digital transformation that Egypt would like to achieve by the year of 2030. Because as you know, the Egyptian market with over 100 million population, underbanked, underserved market, we have a banking population of around less than 12% of the eligible base, which gives us a huge room to expand in the market and open to new accounts and grab new customers that are usually afraid or they don't prefer working with the banking sector. So in our problem statement, what we'll be addressing is digital lending. Just give you a quick review of currently for a client who wants to apply for a loan, he has to go through a very, very lengthy process in the banks. Part of the lengthy process is that we have lots of regulations that we have to abide by, regulations that are usually issued by the central bank, in addition to all the policies and procedures that are applicable for each and every bank. So the client has to visit the branch, he has to submit all the necessary documents, you have to do all the underwriting criteria, all the assessment criteria, which is usually done manually. You check the credit bureau or the I-score of the client, and then you give him the decision where he can have to come once again to the branch, sign all the related contracts, all the checks, whatever it is. And this eliminates lots of people are afraid of going to the bank or they don't want to go to the hassle of going through all of this. So what we're trying to achieve, or our objective from this hackathon, several ones. First one is we're trying to digitize all this onboarding process of the client as well as applying for the loan. And if possible, if you'd like some, currently we have some scoring models that we adopt for some of our products, such as the auto loans or personal loans or credit cards. So we'd like to develop more scoring models pertaining to specific segments of the customers that are not served. So I'll give you an example. For example, the Egyptian market has lots of freelancers. Freelancers might be a copywriter, might be a mobile photographer, might be a food stylist, and so on and so forth. Those type of freelancers are usually, banks do not want to grant them facilities for several reasons. One of them is that they don't have a steady income, so he's a freelancer. Sometime he might be working, maybe this month, next time he might not be working. So banks become a little bit of hesitant to grant them facilities. So what we're trying to do, we're working on another product, for instance, is trying to find an algorithm or to understand the behaviors analysis of those specific segments, and how can we develop like scoring models, or how can we develop the relevant product that meets those client segments. Another thing that we're looking at, one objective of this hackathon as well, is we would like to find some fintech companies that we will be able to partner with and collaborate with them in EG Bank. So for example, we've been running several cycles, as I mentioned before, and we have lots of fintech companies that came out of our incubator, and we're currently in several discussions and collaborations with some of them. Third thing is that we can give them an opportunity to join our next fintech track. So as I mentioned, the fintech track would be in the ideation stage. So if you find one of the competing companies within this hackathon, we will give them like a fast track into our incubator, so they don't have to run through the regular screening criteria, since we've already screened the company during the fintech hackathon, and we already can take them directly to the hackathon itself. And lastly, we could possibly look at some investment opportunities to those startups through our investment arm. So we have our investment arm within EG Bank, so maybe we can look at some of the investment opportunities to those startups as well.
That is a very, very comprehensive approach to I mean, either the problem statement or the initiatives that you currently have on the ground to support the entire ecosystem of startups, entrepreneurs in Egypt. And that's like music to my ears. And coming from the banking industry myself and background, I mean, we would wish to have all banks operating in Egypt, financial institutions in general, not just banks. I mean, insurance companies, investment firms, everybody to have that approach and and mindset. Being a banker, what are the challenges that you are personally facing on the ground? I mean, you wish to partner with startups, you wish to invest in startups, and you have efforts on the ground to grow that ecosystem of startups. What are the challenges that you are personally and as a bank are facing on the ground to achieve those objectives?
So one of the major obstacles that we're currently facing is that, you know, the fintech space is infinite. You might have several solutions and several projects that come up every day, but not necessarily that everything is regulated, whether regulated through FRA or regulated through a central bank. So for instance, we have a couple of companies that we're working with them. The product or service that they're offering it's very famous in Egypt, but it's not regulated by the central bank in terms of technology advancement and such things, which brings me to a very good thing that the central bank really, they're putting lots of effort and focus towards fintech. They've established their own fintech and innovation team within the central bank, headed by very good person. So we're in direct discussion with them, and they've done lots of initiatives. One of them was establishing of the funds of 1 billion Egyptian pounds. The second one is the establishment of the sandbox, which I believe is a really very good thing to achieve. And the fifth is the fintech hub that will be launched soon. So for example, when you speak with the central bank, so regarding the sandbox, so now they're willing to look at the companies that are not yet regulated. Okay, they ask them, you would like to get your idea or service regulated, you would apply to the sandbox under a very good controlled environment. You have to bring the bank with you, and both of you and the company would apply to the sandbox. We look at the business models, we look at your policies, procedures, your risk controls, and then we take it further from there. So that's a very good initiative that the central bank has done, and we're happy to see this moving on. So that's one thing. Secondly, the other issues that while talking with lots of startups that we're facing, especially in Egypt, is that, okay, that's a fintech startup. Is it regulated by the CBE or is it regulated by the FRA? So the central bank, sometimes they said, okay, you're a company, so it falls under the FRA regulation. But then maybe sometimes FRA says, no, it's a fintech company, so it falls under CBE's regulation. So sometimes this causes a bit of confusion to the startups themselves. So what we try to do is bridge the gap between all those things. So talking with the banks, so we're regulated through the central bank. So we take those startups and start the discussion with the central bank and see how things go from there.
One piece of info that can be, I mean, it hasn't been announced yet. The FRA themselves are working on a new fintech regulation, and we're currently in the phase of drafting the final draft of the law itself, closing the rest of the gaps in the market. So this should present a lot more opportunities in the area of microfinance, the area of insurtech, the area of crowdfunding, and many other applications, actually, and use cases that we are currently looking into. I mean, the Egyptian Fintech Association, and of course in partnership with the FRA. So hopefully soon we are going to have those gaps closed as well. Thank you very much, Moemen. I wish to later, I mean, move to Atilla. The GIZ is one of the really active organizations within Egypt and Africa that works on supporting the entrepreneur ecosystem. And lately, perhaps over the past 2 years, we have seen a dramatic change in how you work on the ground, the organizations you partner with to achieve those goals, and the initiatives that you support or even initiate yourselves and push ahead. Perhaps, Atilla, you can introduce yourself, tell us about GIZ and the activities you currently have on the ground supporting the entrepreneurial and the fintech ecosystem in Egypt and other countries. And since we already had Moemen cover the challenges that we are facing on the ground, you can tell us a little bit about the opportunities that fintech and startups in general can offer. How can they support inclusion in general, not just financial inclusion? It can be social inclusion as well, leading to financial inclusion.
Sure, thank you, Noha. So yes, my name is Attila. I work with the German Development Agency, which is a government organization. I'd like to also say hello to each one of you, all the innovators out there, and I'm very happy to be able to speak next to Moemen and the others, such brave promoters and innovators themselves. I would like to speak not so much about the work of GIZ today, and all my remarks are not necessarily those of my employer, but my own views and experience. So I'm based in Frankfurt today. According to Myrna, I do have an Egyptian heart when I'm in Egypt, and I used to have a long time a Jordanian heart when I was working in Jordan for many years. So in any event, I think Moemen has really picked up on a very important, crucial topics. Those. We're talking about financial inclusion, and sometimes, you know, when I look into the futures in plural, I envision a future in which we do not need to necessarily talk about financial inclusion anymore, but finance becomes an embedded part of everyone's, and I mean everyone's, part of life. Noha, can you hear me clearly? Yes. Okay. So I'd like to shed light today about the unbanked. Who are they? Why are they unbanked? What are their needs? And what are the opportunities for fintech, as Noah asked? So despite some cross-country variations, we do know that in the Arab region, the majority of adults, actually 69%, roughly 70% of people do not have access into a market potential of 170 million people. Now, we also do know that many, actually 90 million individuals borrow from informal channels. And so they're exposed to net effect. As you know, businesses, micro and small and medium enterprises, they do provide the greatest share in GDP, in employment, but still they're facing the greatest lack to finance. Actually, 63% of 20 million micro, small, and medium-sized. That translates into a gap of 200 billion US dollars in finance. With variations, I think it is fair to say that there is a similar dimension of market potential in Egypt as well, of course, again, with variations. We do know from 2018 data that 67% of adults do not have access to an account. And actually, roughly speaking, 40% in Egypt do borrow informally from friends and family. Now, overall, across the region, the groups that are disproportionately affected by this are first and foremost women, young people, and in my opinion, the greatest asset the region has, young people, and businesses, of course. And again, with variation, but overall speaking, the majority of those fall into lower income buckets compared to those who are banked today. We do know from field research, we do know that perhaps in our focus so far in the industry on transaction accounts and payments, we might have neglected the special needs of those low income, or as we can call them, the informal majority. So a greater use of financial services for economic activity, for employment, really depends on services that cater to the needs of those unbanked, the needs of the informal majority. And so those financial services need to support the majority in their financial decision making. And we do know what those financial concerns are that the informal majority is dealing with. And you all know them. They're just more amplified for the majority. It's first and foremost uncertainty over income sources. Second, uncertainty over cash flow. We've heard this from Moemen when he said, you know, there's many freelancers in Egypt that do not have access to stable income flows. And third of all, uncertainty over security, be it against shocks or for as collateral for loans. So financial services, again, I'm repeating myself, but they need to cater to those specific needs, and they need to support the informal majority in their decision-making and in their coping, in their daily financial matters in order to be used by the majority. Now, in effect, and I'd like to give you an example. You all know, you've all heard about the Jamaiya, as we say in Arabic, or in English, the ROSCAs, the Rotating Savings and Credit Associations. Now, they work pretty well among the informal and the majority. Why is that? That is because the people can revert to their social ties. Those Jamaiya, or the ROSCAs, are based on social ties, and people can access funds, liquidity needs immediately as they need it, anytime, based on the trust they harness in their social relationships. Those funds are accessible when they need them, and it's built on trust. So payments are important, yes, but we need services. And if we want to see businesses grow and jobs created, we need to have credit, lending, and other services that are accessible to the informal majority, to the businesses, the micro and small businesses. Now, credit to this day remains a major constraint, as I have said, to many businesses. In any event, the message here would be that in order to provide more value proposition to the unbanked majority, we would really need to properly understand what the needs are of the, what is it that technology promises to the unbanked? Well, you've all noticed, and it's that technology provides for the first time perhaps, enables to customize individual level and to provide the value in channels that are more convenient for the unbanked, for the informal majority. Having said that, technology means data, and data is more and more accessible, it's more usable, as you know. So this leaves us with the question, how can we responsibly use data in order to improve people's ability to manage money, in order to help them face shocks or to improve their opportunities for growth? And you do have the answers to that. I have only a couple of pointers. Those pointers, we have heard them briefly, and I will mention those, are first and foremost, how can we make use of alternative sources of data for credit scoring? Second, how can we make use of digital data for the onboarding, the actual due diligence process using digital identity and so on? Third of all, how can we make use, and I know Egypt is at the brink actually to enable open banking in the future, how can we make use of new cooperation and competition mechanisms in the market, such as in open banking, using APIs and open data frameworks to use payments initiation or account information data to provide more value to clients? And lastly, how can we start and launch new partnerships between the innovators and the incumbents, be it payment service providers or banks, in order to embrace big data in a safe and consumer protection way to provide value to the unbanked? Let me stop here, Noha.
Well, that's again a very holistic overview of the opportunities that we have there, the role of technology, and I myself, I really appreciate the fact that you've mentioned the role of strategic partnerships, working with the incumbents. We're not going to be achieving any breakthroughs on the ground, serving financial inclusion in Egypt or within the region without that change in mindset within the incumbents, internal corporate culture. without directing the right amount of resources and providing the right technical assistance and support to the incumbents to achieve that paradigm shift. We see all banks and financial institutions talking about how they wish to support financial inclusion, how they wish to grow their database, including the unbanked and the underbanked, whether they are individuals, whether they are businesses across industries, but everybody doesn't know how. Not all incumbents have reached that clarity on the approach. And this has happened in other parts of the world. We have seen, and we all interact on a daily basis with more mature ecosystems that have found actually the answer to that question. How can that be achieved? I mean, in steps and action plans. Within the incumbents, what are the institutions, the organizations that they can partner with? What can be done on the ground, and steps, if you can provide that, to overcome that obstacle in particular. Thank you. Since we have covered that, the challenges, the opportunities, an overview of the program, the incubation program, as well as the problem statement of the hackathon, perhaps now we can open the floor to questions from our participants in the hackathon. Can ask whatever questions, whether pertaining to the topics that we've covered, or if you have any other questions, technical or none, that you wish to have answered. Please go ahead.
Hi, Noha. I just have a quick question. As the final deliverable for the hackathon, is it expected to be a slide deck or a prototype?
I'm sorry, you were breaking. I did not get the question. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, of course. For the final deliverable of the hackathon, is it expected to be a slide deck or a prototype?
Well, that's perhaps Moemen is better suited to answer that question.
Yeah, we expect to have a prototype. So during the hackathon days, like the hackathon would start on the 24th of August up to the 30th of August, where 30th is the competition day. So there will be several workshops during those days. And then there will be 2 or 3 days, if I'm not mistaken, for developing the prototype.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Moemen. Thank you, Lara.
I have a question.
Please go ahead, Hassan.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to unbanked customers, I mean, this is a business question for all. How do you rate the importance of SME lending, or let's say micro and small business lending, compared to the retail customers? I mean, which is more important, or is one more important than the other one, like 50% or 60% to 40%?
Well, Moemen again, please go ahead.
My personal point of view, both are very crucial to the economy. You cannot rely on only individual lending, or neither you can rely only on SME lending. But if you look at it, it's a full credit cycle. If you break one chain of the cycle, the full chain will break, similar to the domino effect. So for instance, I'll give you a small example, something I was reading a couple of weeks ago. Like a big company in the US has bankrupted during the COVID-19, which resulted in a very vegetables in Egypt to bankrupt or to stop their business. So the chain happened that company bankrupted. So there was a factory in Egypt that was supplying the company all the fabrics and all the cottons and materials to develop them. So since the bankruptcy of the company, the factory in Egypt are unable to work anymore, so they cannot pay salaries to their employees. So they had to let go of half the employees. This employee or this guy or this lady, resulting in losing his salary, is unable to purchase the goods and services that he needs from the supermarket, which entirely gets the supermarket, gets their services from this small grocery shop. If you look at it, it's a full value chain. If you break one part of it, everything would collapse. So I think that individual lending is as important as SME or microfinance lending. I can't say that one is more important than the other.
Okay.
And from a bank perspective, if we're talking about the hackathon, what is your priority? Do you wish to see more solutions directed towards individual lending or towards business lending?
I would think if we find for individual lending, but this was our main focus, but if we find the solutions for micro lending or nano, we're more than happy to accommodate that and to look into that.
Okay, perfect. Atilla, would you like to comment on that?
I have full respect for Moemen's guidance, and I think you should take that as the primary point. I just encourage and applaud everyone who really comes up with solutions that work for businesses, micro and small. Just because I personally think there's a tremendous impact on employment, but that's just a bird's eye perspective, right? So again, Moemen is your guy there.
Well, again, if we are looking into two perspectives in here, the generic one, if we're looking into that economic impact perspective, would definitely be going for lending solutions for businesses. But if we are looking into the objectives of the bank that we are serving in here through the hackathon and the need within the Egyptian market as well, perhaps we would be going slightly towards the individual lending, but end of the day, they're all interconnected, like Moemen said. If you have businesses getting access to funding, we are going to need to fund individuals in order to push that business cycle ahead. So yes, please.
Just a minor remark. An add-on maybe for those who love numbers. I do. I mentioned earlier that there are 90 million individuals, right, who borrow informally in the region, which is a tremendous business potential. Actually, it's worth noting that the lines are blurry. So many of those individuals do borrow for entrepreneurial, for business activities. It's just not so apparent. So in this case, in the region, when I say there's 90 million individuals borrowing informally, 20% do so actually for their business. So that's also something to note. Line very blurry in this regard.
Thank you very much, Atilla. Hassan, I hope you got the answer to your question. So next.
Indeed, actually great answers. And as I understand, line between individuals and micro business converts at one point, but I'm not so sure with the small businesses, but I get that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Yes, Hamad, go ahead.
Hello. I just want to ask, who owns the IP of the idea when it enters the incubator?
Well, that's a question for Moemen to answer.
I asked, can you repeat? Just the line was breaking. Who owns what?
The IP right. Who owns the idea itself and the right to the idea?
Oh, it's you, the company, the startup. It's not owned by the bank at all. It's yours.
And as Moemen mentioned, the bank does not take equity in return for the services that they offer. They are mainly doing this to support the growth of that ecosystem and to create the right pipeline of fintech partners in the future that helps the bank achieve their objectives. Thank you, Moemen.
But in case there's a potential collaboration between the bank and the startup, then we'll have to sit and discuss and see how can we support each other. So it's a win-win situation for both. But the idea, everything is owned by the company who developed the idea, not the bank.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mohammed. Next
Thank you.
question, please.
Okay, I want to ask a question.
Go ahead, Nasser.
Do you need to have an Egyptian as a team member per team?
No, there's no need to be to have an Egyptian. I would love to see an Egyptian, but it's not a prerequisite or mandatory thing. Because you have teams competing from everywhere across the Middle East and the globe. So we know that not necessarily we'll find an Egyptian within each and every team.
Okay.
But again, if I wear the hat of the mentor in here, well, Nasik, if you're going to operate within the Egyptian market, we would strongly recommend that you have someone with the understanding of the local market, with the right connections on the ground that is going to support you, have the right partnerships on the ground. So if you're thinking of operating in here, it would be much, much valuable having the right mentors on the ground, I mean, Egyptians, and of course, having an Egyptian partner would help and support a lot. But of course, that's not a mandate of the hackathon or the incubation program. Thank you, Nazak. Next question. Questions? Are we done? No more questions?
I might have one more question if you have time.
Sure, go ahead, Hassan.
Does EG Bank also target non-client customers, not only unbanked people? Because the data sets differ hugely, I mean.
Yes, of course. We target both clients and non-clients as well.
Okay, thanks.
That is wonderful. It was a very informative session, very interactive. Thanks to our panelists and the audience, of course. Great organization on the Fintech Galaxy side. It was a pleasure to be part of it. And I hope to see you again soon. All the success to the entrepreneurs and the startups, and of course the EG Bank. Thank you very much, Atilla, for being part of this. Thank you, Moemen, and thank you to Merna and Melissa for putting together the panel. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you very, very much.